Dr. Farhan, thank you so much for being here today. It is such an honor and privilege to have you. It's changing times, and Dental Town is certainly something that has influenced and helped so many dentists all across the globe, not just here in the United States. But before we talk about those deep, intricate topics, we want to learn a little bit about you. Tell us about yourself. Where are you from? Where did you go to dental school, and why did you become a dentist?
All right, so I was born in 1962, so I'll turn 58 this year in August. And my parents were Irish Catholic, and they had 7 kids in about 3 days. And we were very, very poor. And my dad saved up all of his money. And when I was 10 years old, he bought his own business, and it was a Sonic drive-in. Do they have those up in Ontario?
They do. Yes, they have it here.
Okay. And my dad thought it was a really neat concept of eating in the car instead of in the office or going inside. And we were so poor, we never even thought of ourselves as poor. But he made about $11,000 a year delivering rainbow bread. And then he opened up his first Sonic, and he made $60,000 that year. And we were just like shocked. And then he opened up one a year for about 9 years in a row. And after about 5 Sonic drive-ins, we moved from the poorest part of Wichita out by Hillside and 21st Street to Hidden Lakes Estates, the nicest area in Wichita, Kansas. And my next door neighbor was none other than Kenny Anderson, the dentist, who is still practicing dentistry in Wichita today. And I had 5 sisters, and my little brother wasn't born until I was out of the house. And I would go to work with the love of my life, my dad, but we'd make hamburgers and onion rings and French fries. And I go to work with Kenny, and the new technology of the day was an x-ray. And he was taking x-rays. He was looking through teeth and doing root canals and crowns. And I was just mesmerized. In fact, I wrote my dental school letter in the 7th grade asking them what I had to do to become a dentist. And Diane Beard wrote me a letter, and she said I should go to high school and take science classes. And I kid you not, on my freshman year of college at UMKC in 1983, she had kept the letter in the file class because she figured out what class I would be and read that letter to the class. It was just hilarious. And yeah, it was love at first sight, and I just wanted to be a dentist. But what I didn't realize is going from, the first 10 years of poverty, and like I say, it was no big deal when you're a kid. You don't know you're poor. You didn't know that other people had air conditioners in their house. You figured they were only in the grocery store. You didn't know that people actually had air conditioners in their own house. But when I started to do dental school, I learned everything from my dad. So the first thing I did is demographics. Now, I had befriended a bunch of dentists all through high school and grammar school. Dr. Knudsen, Dr. Peltzer, Dr. Papard, Dr. Anderson, Dr. Orth. So whenever I was in Wichita, I would always make the rounds, and they'd always take me to lunch, and it was so fun. But they would always complain that the population of Kansas was pretty stable, but the 2 dental schools of Kansas City and Omaha, Nebraska kept dumping 50 new dentists on top of them every year. And they would all show me their little charts where their income was just slowly drifting downwards. And they would be very, very upset. Like Kenny Anderson was the valedictorian of his graduating class at Creighton, but he never had a nice thing to say about their class size. And so I knew demographics mattered. So just like my dad, I wrote the Washington, D.C. Department of Economic Security. And this is before cell phones, computers, any of that stuff. You just wrote them a letter. And I said, where is the United States jobs growth for the future? And I wrote him in about 86, graduated in 87. So they sent me back a report that between 1985 and the year 2000, they estimated the United States would create 30 million new jobs, and half of them would be in 5 cities. And it turned out to be true. It was Boston, St. Petersburg, Florida, Phoenix, Silicon Valley, and Orange County. And growing up in Kansas, I didn't want the snow of Boston. I couldn't stand the insects of Florida. I don't know if you've ever been to Florida, but I mean, it's too many insects. And I was scared. I was literally scared of California because you just grew up in Kansas thinking those were the craziest people in the world. And then I looked at Arizona, and they said 60% of the people that moved to Arizona moved from the Midwest. And I thought them were normal people. And so then I wrote the Department of Economic Security in Arizona. I picked Phoenix, and I got a 6 foot by 4 foot map. And they gave me the 70, 80, and 85 mini census. And then they gave me the 6-year road construction projects planned, water pipes, all the data they had. And I took this 6 foot by 4 foot map, and it was my senior year. So I did it during my lab, because one of our lab assignments was we had to make a 3-unit bridge, and we had the whole semester to do it. And I called up Kenny Anderson. I said, so when I get out of school, am I going to have to make a 3-unit bridge? And they go, no, you're never going to have to make one. Just send the impression to me, and my lab man will make it. So I sent him the impression, and I sat at my desk, and my instructors knew that it was just one of those things. And I traced out the 303 census tracts, and I made a 5x7 index card for each one. And I wrote the number of dentists divided by the population, the zip code, percent change of growth from 70 to 80 to 85, and the median household income. And I simply sorted those 303 cards from where I chose to go, 85044 in Phoenix, which had one dentist for every 6,000 people, building 90 new homes a month, all the way to the bottom, where about the bottom 25%, it was one dentist for every 500 with no growth. In fact, I'll never forget it. There was this one place in Phoenix called 6200 South McClintock in Tempe, Arizona. And I couldn't figure out why there were so many dentists there. And then when I got to the place, I learned about medical dental buildings, and they had this big medical dental building, and they had a ton of dentists there. The gold medal is in San Francisco on 450 Sutter Street is a building with like 170 dentists in one building at 450 Sutter Street. Just so dentists didn't do demographics. Like, you would never go to an intersection and see 29 McDonald's on one corner. They're all evenly spread out, but the dentists, they're just not organized. It's a trade-off of freedom, right? You have the freedom to make any bad decision you want. My grandfather used to always tell the boys about cattle and sheep, because growing up in Kansas, they said, a pig gets full grown by about age 2, and they'll live to be about 10, and a horse is full grown at 3, and they'll live to, a pig is 2, full grown, live to be about 20, a horse is full grown at 3, live to be about 30. He goes, but that's because they don't have free will. They just eat their grass, water, and oats. He said, but you have free will, and humans are the only ones that won't drink water. And you won't drink water. You'll drink everything but water. You'll drink coffee, tea, liquor, booze. You won't eat just grass. You'll eat all these crackers and cheese. And so free will means that you have the decision to make the worst decisions you ever want to make in your life. And dentists still believe in, if I build it, they will come, because I'm all this. And they don't realize that demographics matter. I mean, if you opened up your dental office in the Congo, you're not going to do well. I would recommend, something other than sub-Saharan Africa for starters. I would not go to the Congo. Demographics truly matter. And so I did that. And then when I came out here, this was 87. So all the fillings were still amalgam. And I knew that all the dentists all the dentists knew silver fillings last longer, but all the patients wanted tooth colored. Again, it's just another bad decision. That's what they wanted. Another thing was I was in a retail setting, so I was visible from the car. I remember reading a demographic book that my dad gave me that said that the back in 1900s, they used to say, if you're not seen from the horse's trail, they'll never find your salon. I mean, you got to be on the horse's trail, and the horse was now the horseless carriage. It was the car. And I'll never forget when I opened up, there was about 8 dentists across the street from me, but they were all in a medical dental building. And about the first 100 patients I got, now this area of Phoenix I live in, it's Phoenix, Arizona, but the people there, that tribe calls it Ahwatukee. Like if you say to someone, do you live in Phoenix? They'll say, no, I live in Ahwatukee. But if you're a lawyer, Ahwatukee is Phoenix. But they'd always say to me, it's about time Ahwatukee got a dentist. And I used to think, wow, man, I'm the 8th guy. There's 8 guys across the street, but you'd never know it. They were completely closing off. So I think what I did, the only thing unique that I did was back in '87, I was adding retail business and still doing that. Like in Wall Street, they always report their sales per square foot, but you can listen to 1,000 dental consultants in a row and no one would mention that. But there's a direct cost between rent, mortgage, equipment, bill out, computer, insurance, square footage, and revenue. So I just, and then later I went on to get my MBA because I realized, all this business stuff, you just believed your dad. So I thought, well, I'll go back and get formal training. And it was basically the same, but I sounded better because instead of saying like overhead, like what is your bare ass daily minimum? I knew it was the daily break-even point. So I basically I got a whole bunch of new formal terms that didn't have any profanity in it. So I thought the whole MBA was worth it. And by the way, I'm on a laptop doing this Zoom with you. My first laptop I ever bought was when I was on my way to MBA school. And I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I just had this idea. I'm going to take notes because I'm only doing this for my dental office. I'm not doing it to learn anything other than what's applicable to my owner operated dental business. So I took notes. It was 2 classes a trimester, 3 trimesters a year, 2 years. So it was 2, 4, 6, 12 core courses. I took detailed notes. And then when it was time to do the project, I would always do mine on my office. And my instructor would always say, well, I want you to do something else. And I would whine and cry and throw a fit. And every project was just done on my dental office. And I took great notes. And that was the 30-day MBA, which I put for free on YouTube. And it's for free on iTunes. What's so neat about that is I did that in '98. And this is 2020. And when kids send me an email and say, man, that was great. Thanks for doing that. I say, yeah, I was 20 years old. Did that bother you? And they'd all say, business, it's like geometry. I mean, geometry is what, 2,500 years since Pythagoras? I mean, business is business, overhead's overhead, people's people. So not much has really changed.
Well, it appears that you have some great role models. You have your father. He started franchising the Sonics, and Sonics are still around. They're great businesses. They're doing very well, and they're probably doing better now than ever. That the sit-down restaurants are all closed, and the drive-throughs are still open. Fast foods. You've got Dr. Kenny Anderson, the great dentist that showed you the way towards dentistry and led you, and you made that good decision for yourself during your time to become a dentist. Students nowadays, they owe between $250,000 to, I've heard $600,000 in student loans. We've got this COVID thing going on, and the ADA just put out some statistics that 65% of patients are probably going to delay or not come in for treatment anymore. Landlords, some of them are, you mentioned rent, very important, sales per square footage. Landlords, some of them are giving dentists a little bit of a break, and some are not. Did we make a mistake? Are we just very unlucky to be in dentistry now? What's your opinion?
Well, those are all excellent questions, very, very excellent questions, very timely questions. Yes, it's true that picking your sector is going to have a bigger impact. And I saw that in Phoenix, Arizona. I had a bunch of patients in the 80 who were programmers and just drifted into Intel. And then some of the other ones drifted into Motorola or McDonnell Douglas or whatever. And the Intel stock just went crazy. And I watched them all become millionaires. And Motorola, remember when I don't know how old you are, but you look like a baby. But I don't know if you remember the Motorola and Nokia, when Nokia and Motorola, where they own the world. And so if you just would have been with your 2 best buddies and you said, I want to go to Nokia. I really like that guy. And the other guy said, no, I'm going to Motorola. And you thought, nah, I'm going to go to Intel. 30 years later, the Intel guy's a millionaire and the Nokia guy's not. So picking your sector and picking the country you're born in is very important. I always tell people, make sure your parents have you in the 20 wealthiest countries. That's a big impact. But dentistry, we'll just go back to the little blue pill. I mean, in 1900, healthcare was 1% of the GDP. and a century later, it was 14%. And now it's only 2020 and it's 17%. So it shows you that the only true wealth is health. And as people get wealthy, they bid up the price of living one more day. So when you're born and you got 30,000 days, a young kid who's only lived 15,000 days, he's not even thinking of it. But as you get through 20,000 days or 25,000 days, you realize, man, I don't want to die. So you're off to the Mayo Clinic, you're off for the new chemo. And in economics, they like these clarity tests. And Milton Friedman had a great one for healthcare. He called it the little blue pill. He said, okay, Abe, here's your only choice. You either die tonight or you buy this little blue pill from me, take the pill, and you won't die tonight. How much are you going to give me for that? You going to give me your whole man cave?
That's right. Everything I've got.
Yeah, you'll give me everything you got. And the Mayo brothers were, which is about halfway between you and me. I'm in Phoenix and they're Rochester and you're in Ontario. Those are the first ones that realized that when older people got sick, you just said, well, you know, your grandma's 82 years old and she's sick and she's not going to make it. And they realize, hey, do you realize she's ready to sell the farm, the land, the tractor? She'll sell the whole $1 million farm to beat this cancer, even though she's 82. And I mean, look at dentistry. We now have 10 specialties. They're not even talking about geriatric dentistry. I mean, it's like pediatric dentistry and ortho dentistry. Who cares about grandpa? I mean, don't you just grind them up and fertilize, you know, the next year's crops with them? So you're going to see, and go around in Canada. I mean, ask every girl you see. Just walk up to her and say, hey, I'm just a dentist. I'm curious about something. How much money would I have to give you to pull your front tooth and you never replace it the rest of your life? You'll just have to tell everybody, you know, you're from Manitoba or something. And there's nobody in Ontario that would do it. I mean, girls scream. So when you talk about the student loan debt, let's be honest about student loan debt. The numbers are bad because they intentionally know that 20% of the kids have no debt because their parents paid for it. Their parents are oral surgeons, endodontists, periodontists, you know, they're dentists. So really so 20% of the kids have a donut and they mix those numbers in, which is intentional fraud, and come out with telling you that the average debt is like 275. It's really 400,000. So the kids that are in school that aren't getting funded by mom, dad, it's 400,000. They think that's a lot of money, but their first house is going to be 400,000. They think it's a lot of money. Their first divorce will be $1 million. My divorce was $3.8 million. My student loans was $87,000. Have you ever taken, let me get on my calculator. Have you ever taken $3.8 million divided by $87,000? My divorce was 43 times more expensive than dental school. So if you want to whine about picking healthcare, well, it's only been the fastest growing sector of the whole globe for the last century. And when people say we spend too much money on healthcare, well, would you give me your house to beat cancer tonight and take my blue pill?
Sure, absolutely.
Would you give me your car?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Would you give me all your computer passwords?
I'd give you all, everything I've got.
But nobody complains about us spending too much on healthcare or too much on cars or too much on cell phones. They always whine about we spend too much on healthcare because they're not spending their own money on healthcare. You bought your man cave, you bought your iPhone, you bought everything you bought. But when it comes to healthcare, they say, okay, well, we're going to shake you down for some tax money and pay for that guy's healthcare over there. So whenever you have other people's money buying stuff for other people, you're never happy. I mean, you do this, you know, go out and buy yourself a birthday present and look at what you buy yourself. And then I'll change questions. Okay, now go buy one for your brother. And it gets a lot smaller. And then I say, well, go buy one for some guy in Florida you never met and not even in your country. Now it's like down to this big. And no one cares. So look at the fraud. When insurance pays 100%, the doctors are overbilling. Like when countries say things like, one of the things that pet peeve of mine from Canada is when they'll say, well, I had I had to go to the doctor and had a surgery when I was all done. And when I checked out, I didn't even get a bill. It's like, well, who in 200 years of economics would advise that the consumer doesn't look at the bill? I mean, what if they billed you for 2 bypasses and you only had 1? What if they billed you for 2 artificial knees? I mean, so just when these countries don't look at the bill, I mean, you just can't violate 2 centuries of economic theory. I mean, if in order to go along with your thought, I have to throw away everything back to Adam Smith, maybe you should go back in the corner and think more about your thought and do some experiments and publish something. So in dentistry, look at that. Owner-operated dentists make $100,000 a year more net income than an employee. I mean, and every teacher knows it, because when you teach, when you lecture, the owner-operators are in the front row taking notes, and their associates are on their iPhone doing Snapchat and sending a picture to somebody, you know, whatever they ate for lunch. So incentives matter, and you got to do that. Now back to the student loan debt. If you want to whine about student loans, well then why? There's 208 countries. There's no student loan problems in the 200 countries where poor people have no access to other people's money. You go into all those poor countries, and I've lectured in 50 of those countries. The house that you live in, you slowly build for 30 years. It's always under construction. It's not like in Canada where you have access to other people's money, buy the house finished, and then pay it back over with interest. They don't have any student loans. So you know that when you got out of high school, you could have got a job at McDonald's for $10 an hour, worked there for 10 years, and saved all your money and gone to dental school in cash. But you said, you know what? I want to use other people's money, go get my dental degree, and I'll go from being worth $10 an hour to $100 an hour, and then I'll be a dentist and I'll pay it off super quick. And these dentists, I'm in the middle of 2 dental schools in Phoenix. We have Midwestern in Glendale, Arizona, suburb of Phoenix on the west side, and AT Still, a dental school on the east side, Mesa. And these kids come out, and I've been watching them for a decade, and they come out, oh, 400,000. So you got to get out the world's smallest violin and start playing the song, because they want you to be sad for them, and you just do it because it's what they want. And then you come back and talk to them next year. Well, how are you doing? Oh, we just closed on a house in Queen Creek. And then you look at it, it's like, wow, well, I actually know your dad because he's a dentist, and it kind of looks like a bigger house than your dad. Tell me how that works, where your dad's been working for 30 years and you got a bigger house than your dad. By the way, your dad's car is 15 years old. Your car is new. And then here's your grandparents. They live in Apache Junction in some $100,000 home they've had for 40 years. So tell me, how did you justify a McMansion, and you're 27 years old out of school, and then they don't work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They get out of school and they want 3-day weekends. It's like, I mean, it just never stops. And then you had a guy like me who, my father wouldn't give me a dime because I was a boy. He paid for my sister's college, but he told me, you're a man. I'm not going to deprive you of that. You're going to go to college. You're going to pay for it with your own money. He says, if I paid for your college, you go up there and do drugs and chase women. So I had to buy drugs with student loan money because my dad wouldn't pay for them. And my gosh, when I got out of school, I had no money. I graduated May 11, 100 and some days later, I was open. So I did my demographics. I went in and saw Dave Cheatham at Caldwell Bankers. And I said, this is the best zip code. I want to rent 1,000 square foot in there. And he said, okay, I'll rent you 1,000 square foot for 3 years for $15 a square foot. And I said, okay, well, I'll pay $20 for 5 years. And he said, okay, so why are you giving me this extra money? And I said, well, you built this whole 20-acre grocery store center. I don't know anything about that. You can certainly do my build out. So he said, fair enough. So I signed a 5-year lease at 20, and he agreed to do my build out for the 1,000 square foot. Then I went over to the equipment dealer at the time. It was Healthco. This was before Patterson and Shine, and Benco wasn't out here. Never heard of Burkhart. And I went to Shine. That was out of Dallas. And I told them I wanted all new, the best equipment. So they lined it all up, and they said, okay, here it is. You owe us. It was the same money as my student loans. And my student loans was $87,000. I think it was like $88,000 or something like that. And I said, well, actually, I don't have a penny. So what I want you to do is put all that equipment in my office, and I'll make you 60 monthly payments over 5 years. When last payment, I own it free and clear. So do you want $87,000 of something right now with interest, or do you want nothing? And he was upset. But so the next thing I knew, I had the construction guy doing my build out. And since he did the whole mall, the build out happened like that. And then they put in all the new equipment, and I opened up my practice with no money down, because I knew my dad wouldn't give me a dime anyway. And I didn't have, I had $87,000 student loans. So then I opened up, and it got opened on a Thursday. Phone didn't even ring. And I was like, oh my God, did I mess up? Friday, the next day, nothing. So Saturday, what I do? Well, first of all, Friday night, I called my dad almost in tears, like, oh, what do I do? And he goes, are you scared? And I go, yeah. And he said, good. He goes, good, good, good. He said, when you see 3 hungry coyotes walking down a dirt road, somebody's going to die. You're scared. You're hungry. Now get out there and run for mayor. Get out there and press the flesh. So I got a map of Phoenix, of Ahwatukee, and every Saturday and Sunday, starting at like sunup, I would just walk down the street. I'd knock on every door. They'd come to the door, and I'd say, hey, I'm Howard. I'm 24 years old. I just opened my dental office by Safeway, and I'm going to be here till I'm 65. And I just thought I'd get out and meet the neighborhood. And 2 out of 3 people were just like, okay. They just thought that was really weird. And they'd shut the door. And you could tell it was a weird factor. They never had a dentist knock on their door on a Saturday morning. And then the third guy would be in his underwear and his wife beater shirt and go like, well, actually, Abe, I wrote my teeth. And I'm putting down my backpack and turning on my flashlight, and I'm looking at the tooth, and I put my gloves on and all. And then my clothes, my big clothes was, well, Abe, I really need to get an x-ray of this tooth. And I'd pull out my notebook and say, I have an opening from 7 to 7, 7 days a week till the end of time. Does any of that work for you? And I wouldn't stop on Saturday or Sunday until I was fully booked the following Monday through Friday. Every 90 minutes, somebody that I met on their front door. And that's what it comes down to. It just comes down to hustling. And here's my advice to the COVID class of 2000. I'll get to the answer, but it's a little truncated.
Please.
This is the best time to specialize. There's no doubt about that. If you graduated in May and you can get accepted into a specialty, well, we know owner-operated dentists make $100,000 more than employee dentists. We know that specialists make over $125,000 a year more than generalists. Why? Well, in 1900, there were no specialties. By 2000, the MDs had 58. We had 8. Now it's 2020. We're up to 10, and they're up to 60 something. And what it is, in 1900, one doctor did your head to your toe. Now, no one would do that. In fact, I got a friend who's optometrist to make these glasses. I have another friend who's an ophthalmologist, MD, and I have a patient that only does retinas, and another eye doctor that only does glaucoma. I mean, we're not going back in time. That's why when I see these young dentists that come out of school and they want to be super dentists, they think they're going back in time. They're like, well, I want to master endo and ortho and perio and implants and bone grafts and pediatric dentistry. And I'm like, dude, you sound like a complete schizophrenic. You're Sybil. You're going back to the 1900s. There are 40,000 healthcare journals. Like I own a healthcare magazine, Dental Town and Ortho Town. There's 40,000 of them in the United States of America. You cannot be a glaucoma, a retina, an optometrist, an eye doctor, let alone in dentistry. So the reason specialists are making so much money is because they're doing one thing. And if you're not doing it once a week, you've never proven to anyone you make money. Like you meet these guys who do like sleep apnea, and they make like one orthodontic sleep apnea retainer like once a month. Oh my God, all the courses they've gone to and webinars and all this shit they bought and all this equipment, and they bill out like one procedure. I mean, it's just like the biggest black hole and deal. Now, I'd like you to learn those things to keep you running 20 red lights on the way to street, because you got to do this job for 40 years. So I don't want burnout. If buying a laser makes you get a speeding ticket on the way to work, best decision you've ever made. Look at CAD CAM. I mean, I didn't go to school 8 years to become a lab tech, but if trimming dies and doing CIRAC makes you love dentistry, you can't afford not to do it, because the flip side of that is I'm burned out. I hate my job. I'm drinking Listerine in between patients, and I'm projecting all this on my family and friends and everybody. I'm making everyone miserable. So I need you to be motivated. But over here with just my MBA hat, well, if you only make one thing, you're going to do it faster. I remember when Chrysler almost went under and Lee Iacocca took over, and they had a condominium real estate business in Miami. And they're like, what is this? And they're like, well, there's a lot of money to be made in condos. And it's like, well, we don't have time to make condos. We're getting our ass kicked in cars. He closed it down. And then they had some fancy car companies. They owned some of the fanciest cars in Europe. I forgot what they were, Porsche or something, Land Rover or whatever. And he looked at this, and it's like 1% of sales, but it was all of his best engineers went to the high-end luxury car. So he's like, no, close that down. I need my best engineers on what we do. And what we do is a cleaning, exam, x-rays, fillings, crowns, simple endo, whatever it is that you do. And getting a focus on that is everything. Now, the oral surgeons, when they come out of school right now with COVID-19, their base salary is still $300,000. They're paid against 45% of production. And a lot of them, I've seen their paychecks, a lot of them are making $500,000 to $750,000 a year the first year out. So if you can go be an oral surgeon, run. Now, endo has always been the second wealthiest specialty, but it's going downhill fast because, you know, when I got out of school, you take the legends and the legendary endodontists in Phoenix, you know, Matloff and Liebau and these guys, they worked hard, and they would do 8 or 9 molars a day, and endo was big and money and profitable. And then came the microscope. And now all the endodontists, you know, they decided they're neurosurgeons, reattaching nerve endings at the apex, and they've slowed down to just like 4 or 5 a day. So their volume, I mean, this microscope has slowed down. And I get it, because when you look at big insurance data, if you look at insurance and they say, okay, here's 100 million molar root canals on the same tooth paid. If a general dentist did them in 60 months, 10% of the teeth are missing. And if an endodontist did it, it's 5%. So when an endodontist does a root canal, 1 in 20 is going in the trash can. If a general dentist does it, it's 1 in 10. But I'll tell you what, man, I mean, I don't know what the 5% failure rate is, but if it's taking you from 9 teeth a day to 5, that means in my country of 331 million Americans, a lot of people aren't going to have the freedom to afford to save their tooth. So my jury's still out on this endodontic thing. But pediatric dentistry, let's just be fair, I'd rather work at Taco Bell, 3rd shift. I mean, I would. I mean, if I had to like go to hell or be a pediatric dentist, I'd say, well, have you met Lucifer? I mean, what is he worse than a 2-year-old screaming? There's some things I wouldn't do for money, and pediatric dentistry is one of them. So it's each own thing, because I really would advise you. I mean, it's your life, Abe. I mean, you got to live from 25 to 65. How old are you?
I'm 44, sir.
Oh my God! You just have one of those baby faces. You really do.
I've been drinking milk.
You what?
I've been drinking milk.
Oh,
a lot of it. It's really healthy, dude.
I drink milk too, but I'm Irish, so I have to add Jameson to it.
So you have a very colorful way of describing, you know, what's going on in the marketplace. But a lot of our colleagues, especially right now, you mentioned specializing. A lot of our colleagues are talking about, you know, other avenues in dentistries, innovations, you know, technologies in different areas. You started Dental Town. Tell us, why did you start Dental Town?
Well, that's a great question, and it was totally selfish reasons for myself. I was a solo practicing dentist, and I had associates, but we were covering more hours. So, you know, I would do the 7 to 1, and then he would do the 1 to 7 and things like that. But I was professionally isolated. I always was sitting there. I always felt alone, and I would be in a room, and there's a bite wing and an X-ray, And I felt bad because I always turned to my dental assistant, Jan, who was with me for 30 years, and say, well, what would you do? When she was little, she'd always say, well, you're the doctor. And I'm like, I know I'm the doctor, but, talk to me. And then one day, it was in 1998, and I was on the internet, and it was ESPN, and had a message board talking about football. And I thought, oh my God, I would give anything to have this talking about a root canal. So I got on the phone the next day and I called around. I found this guy, Ken Scott, who's still with me. I talked to him today. He programmed the whole thing. And I told him, I said, it will really make me feel special. I mean, I just don't want to practice alone anymore. I want to be able to take an x-ray and a picture of the tooth and put it on the camera and see what Abe thinks. And oh my God. And it was like throwing a match in water. This was 5 years before Facebook. And every single dentist that saw it, it was like trying crack cocaine for the first time. I mean, they just couldn't. And the cases, like in your lifetime, how many weird cases have you had in your lifetime? A handful. But now you had all these dentists showing their one weird case. And I'll never forget early on, this dentist showed this case, and it was an ortho case on his own daughter. And everybody was looking at it like, holy moly, what are you going to do with that? It wasn't even in that day, a dentist in Australia posted the same case, and it was his daughter 10 years ago. And I was just like, wow. And so I would say that, what are the 5 things? Is your idea, does it make it faster, easier, higher quality, lower cost, and smaller? And people always come up to me and they always say, well, it's going to be a little more complicated and it's going to be a lot more expensive, but it'll be worth it. And it's going to slow you down and frustrate everyone. And then they still want to do this idea. And I mean, it's just simple. I mean, is this better? Is this faster? Is this easier? And I love the time zone thing. Like, if you were up at 5 o'clock in the morning in Phoenix because you couldn't sleep about a case you were having at 8, well, it's already 8 o'clock in New York. And I learned where India was in 2 seconds because India's time zone is New Delhi's 12 hours the opposite of Phoenix. So if it's noon here, I know it's midnight there. And that's my clock with New Delhi. And so many, with that many people, you could literally have a patient in the chair and you could say, I just numbed up Abe and here's what I'm going to do. Is this right? He's in the chair and posting, do this, do that. So we're social animals, Abe. And it's, I think if you were born the only person on earth, how boring and confusing and weird. And being born in a tribe, and they call it the rule of 50 million. If you're born in a tribe of 50 million, you'll never learn a second language. I mean, when you're born in a country with 300 million people that speak your language, you don't learn the second language. But if you're born in Denmark with 5 million people, 5 different languages. They got to talk to the Germans, the French, the Italians, the Spaniards. But if you got about 50 million people that are all on the same page with the same language, you need all that. And there are 2 million dentists around the world, and they average about 6,500 patients each. And I've gone around the world. I've lectured in 50 countries, and I just love dentists. My 4 boys love dentists. They'd always tell me, Dad, your friends, when we go to their house, they got all these books that aren't fiction. But when I go to my other friend's house, if their dad's a dentist, a doctor, or a lawyer, they got all these books. And if they're not one of those 3, there's no books. And then my boys at a very young age were already saying, I think Billy's friend's dad is mixing up like World War II and World War I. And he, what I mean? So dentists are a fun group. I mean, they all learn math. Applied math is physics. Applied physics is chemistry. Applied chemistry is biology. Applied biology is dentistry. They're smart. They're owner operators. I remember when I started Dental Town, one of the earliest posts on there, someone said, oh my God, they've got ads now. And some older dentists were like, oh, well, you sound like you're an employee. You must not own your own business. Did your dad pay for college? And sure enough, Dad paid for college. He was working with his dad, and he was outraged that there was an ad on Dental Town because he didn't realize there's actually people that have families that need paid to do this stuff. But so I would tell the kids I would tell them this. This is what I tell the class of COVID 2000. go to graduate school. If you can go be an oral surgeon, endodontist, or some specialty, do that. Number two, if you want to whine about $400,000, I cannot wait to go to your divorce party. I hope it's in Vegas. I hope there's lots of booze, because that's going to cost you $1 million. Number three, my whole life, when I was in college, no one complained about college, because if you start saying, I don't want to go to the library, your friends would say, well, do you want to go to Vietnam? And you're like, whoa. And then when I was in dental school, my oral surgeon, Matt Horrigan, he was the best oral surgeon, because when he got out of dental school, they drafted him to Korea, and they only gave him 150s, 151s, small and large elevator, and a periosteal in like a sock. That was all he had. So when you would ever ask Matt for another forceps or another this or that, if it wasn't in the Korean bag of 150, 151, small, large, you didn't need it. And he'd always say, when I got out of school, I had to go to Korea for a year. This is all I had. Why do you spoiled kids need all these instruments? So I tell this class at COVID 2000, would you rather be shipped off to war? Would you rather woke up to World War II or some other event? I mean, I think of all the bad things that can go wrong, what I love about this one, it's all the humans against a virus. That's so much nicer than the humans at each other. I mean, look at America. Our largest tragedy was the Civil War 100 years before I was born, and 1 out of every 30 Americans died, and they burned down the whole country because everything was made of wood, and they fought with fire. And when it was over, 1 in 30 dead, and the whole country burned down. And my God, and it's 3 months of coronavirus. How would you like to do 12 months in Nam? I mean, this is, but here's what's going to happen. You are going to be the low man on the totem pole, obviously, because what we have is the supply and demand. So when we look at the demand issue, what's good about this virus is it's not going after the kids. So when you look at a continent like Africa, where the median average age is 19, well, I don't see hardly anybody under 19 dying of COVID-19. So the poor countries are good because they're young. And when you go in these old countries, America, the median average age is 39. So what does that mean? That means that supply and demand, we all open back up today. Well, the over 50, especially over 60, I'm lucky. I'm only going to be 58, and it's really killing the people 60 and over. So I got a 2-year grace period, which should land me till the pandemic's over, because I see those coronaviruses come up to me and they go, I don't think he's 60. I think he's 58. And then they fly away. And so I think that those are the people that were coming in for full mouth rehab, implants, crown and bridge, the whole 9 yards, and they're hunkered down. And so I think a lot of older people are going to stay out of restaurants and retail and crowds, because, I mean, look at Sweden. They didn't even close down their schools. They said, 5-year-olds aren't going to, that's not the problem. The problem is when that 5-year-old goes and visits their grandpa and then gives them the virus and kills them. So when you're going to have at least the 80-20 rule, 20% minimum of this dental market, I call it BC and AC, before Corona, after Corona, at least 20% of the BC market is not coming back until the pandemic's over, and that's in 2 years. And by the way, when you talk about the vaccine, you just give away your age and your youth, because they've been, when I was in dental school, I graduated in 87. They told us the vaccine for P. gingivalis was around the corner. The vaccine for Streptococcus mutans was at Gainesville, Florida, and was in clinical trials, and there wouldn't even be cavities in 5 years. And then the one I was most excited about is Upjohn Pharmaceuticals in Kalamazoo, Michigan, had just cured male pattern baldness with minoxidil, and I was going to have all my hair back. And then they were going to have, every time you got the flu shot, they'd say, well, this isn't for the common cold. That's coronavirus and rhinovirus. And they said, well, when are you going to come out with a shot for the common cold? That's probably going to be, probably next year, maybe the year after. Okay, well, it's been 40 years, and I have no hair. There's no vaccine for P. gingivalis, Streptococcus mutans. If you think there's going to be a vaccine for the coronavirus, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm the poster child for worst predictions or whatever. But at 50, almost 58 years old, I've been hearing about your pipe dreams about vaccines for the common cold and dental decay. It's not, take that off the table. These pandemics run 18 to 24 months. And 1 out of the 7, we got good data from 1700. One time, the first peak was the biggest and it faded out. 4 out of 7 times, the second peak was twice as big as the first peak. So that's the fall. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what everyone's saying. I mean, we live in North America. So if a lot of people say, well, the coronavirus lives year round in the tropics. Well, I don't live in the tropics. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. It's, most sapiens live 20 to 40 degrees in the northern equator. I mean, you don't even have 10% of humans in the southern equator. So it doesn't even matter. They live in this little band, 80% of them in that 20 to 40. And in that region, the common cold, rhinovirus, coronavirus is seasonal, and it goes away in the summer and it comes back in the fall. And so we're going to be here a long time. So what does that mean to classic COVID 2000? Well, if my demand drops 25% from pre-corona, well, then I'm not bringing back the associate dentist. I had the associate dentist because I was so busy. I had excess work. Well, the excess work is gone. And then you apply to dental school. You apply to specialty school and they say they can't get in. Well, I mean, how lame is that? I mean, I ripped some dentist a new one the other day and he was whining about it. He applied to 6 places and didn't get in. I said, well, that was 6. There's over 50. And you didn't even look at Central and South America. I mean, you can go to the Caribbean and buy your way in. And when you get back, nobody cares that their endodontist went to Belize or they don't care. I've been a dentist for 32 years and I could count on one hand the number of times someone's asked me what dental school I went to. And I tell them University of Missouri, Kansas City. And it's usually like, oh, my roommate's sister's cousin went to jail with the guy from Kansas City. I mean, it has no impact on your decision. And then furthermore, the biggest line of crap about specialty school is that they didn't exist since Pierre Fichard to G.V. Black. So when I was little, when they come up with the endo specialty, like you take Ben Johnson in Tulsa, Oklahoma, one of the greatest endodontists of all time, or take another one, who's the guy, John McSpadden in Chattanooga. Well, these guys had practices limited to endo. They would just only do root canals. And then when they came out with endodontists, they had a problem because all the legends never went to endo school. They never had a degree, but they wanted to sell this endo program for $100,000 a year for 3 years. Imagine that. And so I would tell them, if you really want to be an endodontist and you didn't get into endo school, I would go back in time and I would set up and I'd say practice limited to endodontics. I have seen this with my own eyes a dozen times because when you're a journalist, I started my own magazine. In 1994, I started Dental Town magazine. And so everybody's always sending me letters, emails, so whenever you're a journalist, you get a lot of incoming, interesting information that people wish was more transparent to the masses, right? And so many of these people, they would drive around. This one guy drove around. He found this small town in Albuquerque. He had 8 dentists. And he found the perfect town. He found a town. It was 8 dentists. 4 of them hated endo and just completely hated it. And then the other ones like to pick and choose the easy ones. So he just went around all 8. He said, I swear to God, I won't do a hygienist. I won't do the crown. I won't steal your patient. I'll just be practice limited to endo. Boom. He's been crushing it for 2 decades. That's how all the specialties work. And like, let's say you want to be a pediatric dentist. What, you're $400,000 in debt. We're in the middle of a depression. I don't care what anybody says. The only difference in a depression and a recession is length of time, but you lost 30 million jobs. The 1929 stock market crash did not result in a depression for until 32 to 36. In the depression, it took over 1,000 days to lose as many jobs that we lost in under 60 days. And then look at the coronavirus. I mean, it breaks out in Wuhan. They're done with it over there. All their neighboring countries, Taiwan, Singapore, South Korea, Japan, no one's had 500 casualties. And then here's the United States, like, say what? 80,000 people. We lost more people in 2 months than the 10-year Vietnam War. And people are still wondering if the political machine is incompetent. I mean, what would they have to do to show they're incompetent? I mean, would like an entire state have to just like fall off into the ocean and another one just like catches fire and burns to ground? So I mean, crazy. But so if I wanted to be an endodontist now, say I didn't have the skill to be an endodontist, but I wanted to be an endodontist. Well, I would go do an apprentice with an endodontist. I go find a great endodontist, says, hey, I'll work for you. And instead of 45%, which is what specialists get, general dentists, we're getting 40%, but post Pandora, they're going to come back. The DSOs are renegotiating that down big time. I think it's going to really get negotiated down to 25% because their demand has fallen, but they still got to pay their rent, mortgage, equipment bill, computer, insurance. So their price is going to fall down. Go up to an endodontist, say, I'll do endo. And instead of 45%, I'll do it for 25%. But I want a mentor. I want a mentor to help me. And then just say practice limited to endo, practice limited to pediatric dentistry, practice limited. You don't have to be, I went to a private university that has $100 million in their trust fund and then sends me letters like I'm some nonprofit church and I should make more donations to them so that the dean can go to meetings in Rome and Tokyo. I mean, you go to these private schools, you ever call it, where's your dean? He's at an education conference in London. Yeah. And then he's got to go to Tokyo and Copenhagen and Moscow. If you want to learn how to do molar endo, just find someone to teach you how to do molar endo. And then here's the last. I am so glad that they can't find a job because this is what I'm going to tell dentists. I mean, I've been a dentist 32 years. I know dentists. I mean, I know my homies like the back of my hand. And I'm telling you, they're not good employees. If you want to have 1 million people do what you say, go into the military or Walmart. Don't go into a law firm because you can't get 2 dentists to agree on anything. And they come out of school and they say, I don't want to own my own business. I think I just want to get a job. 1 year, hate it. They leave. Go to another one. 2 years, they hate it. And it's the same turnover on the FANG stocks. Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, their employee turnover among millennials is like 1 to 2 years. And in fact, the longest lasting DSO in America is Heartland. And the only reason they keep them 2 years is because they give them so much free CE. I mean, they can go to a weekend course teaching anything on any weekend. And so since no matter who you work for, you're not going to like it. And since every year out of school, you're going to quit your job and find another job. And so when you say you don't want to open up your own business, just tell me how many years you want to wait. Do you want to wait 5 years and 5 jobs? 7 years, 7 jobs? I really don't care. I've been doing this for 32 years, but I know one day you're going to come to me and say, it's so bad and I'm so miserable and I hate everybody so much. I finally decided to open up my own dental office. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I made that decision an hour after I graduated, and they just keep taking longer and longer and longer. So what's good is right now, they're not going to get jobs. So now it's like, well, do you want to be a waitress at a restaurant where every other table is empty for social distancing? Or do you just want to go rent 500 square feet and put in just 2 operatories? And dentistry is no longer a game of volume. So I got out of school, I do a crown for $1,000, but then the insurance come along and say, well, we'll give you, if you sign up for our insurance, we'll give you like 100 patients that need a crown, but we're only going to pay you 600. And dentistry is a game of volume because I could see the patient here and go numb up a patient, go see the crown, go do a hygiene check, go prep this tooth, leave, let them pack the cord. I could run 8 rooms by myself from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I could do that all day long, but that's not how it works anymore. Now I'm going to walk into one room. I'm going to be suited up like I'm Neil Armstrong landing on the moon. I'm going to have all this PPE on, shield, all this stuff. So I'm going to go in and we're going to do your exam and take your x-rays and measure your teeth. And after you measured all the gums, you might as well scale and do the prophy. And they got 2 fillings here and do them. I think it's going to bring back a lot of chairside dentistry CAD CAM, to avoid a second appointment, whatever. But I'm already seeing that where dentists used to have 5-6 chairs and 12 staff members, and they would do 10,000 a day and their overhead was 8,000. And now they're saying, I had 1 patient in the morning and I went in there with 1 employee, my assistant. We did a root canal, build up and crown, CERAC, the whole 9 yards. She was gone in 3 hours, $2,500. And then we had another toothache, same thing. And one of my friends called me and I said, Howard, today, 3 toothaches, 3 root canal, build up and crowns, $7,500. And I had 1 assistant for $20 an hour for the day. So that's how it's going to look for 2 years. So for 2 years, decreased demand, 20% minimum, maybe as low as half. Dentistry is no longer a game of volume. Why you're signing up to go do 100 crowns at $600 a piece when you could be doing 1 for $1,200. The American Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry, the value added, the market's always been 2. It's always been cost leadership always wins. Whoever has the lowest cost always wins. Southwest Airlines, Costco, Walmart, IKEA, lowest cost wins, and they've always gotten half the US dental market. The other half said, I don't want to go on that guy. I trust Abe. I know Abe. I care what it looks like. He's good on cosmetics. So, but now the new cosmetic dentist, it's no longer the American Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry. It's the American Academy of Disease Control Dentistry. And the value added, the people that don't have to go to a dentist on their list, they don't have to go to the cheapest dentist. They're afraid. And they're going to go to you because when they walk in there, now your waiting room is like Sonic Drive-In. Now you're eating in your car. And then when you come in, there's going to be a plexiglass deal because it's a game of droplets and we don't want to spit on our receptionist. And everybody's wearing a mask. And so if they feel safe, if they see that you got it. Okay, I remember Abe before, and there was a lot of people in commotion, and now I go in there and it's like a library. It's like half the volume. It's all serious. I walked in the room. They did everything in 1 appointment. And so go be a specialist. Go open up your damn office. Thank God you're not being shipped off to war and being taught how to shoot an AK-47. I'd rather learn how to spot and identify a fake K95 N95 mask than being shipped off to some foreign country. We got this. It's 2 years. Go open up your own business.
So,
how is that for an open rant? How is that for a rant?
That is great. So, speed questions. Question number 1, yes or no? Okay. Is the quality of dentistry going to go up?
Is the quality of dentistry going to go up?
Yes, because of the situation.
Well, it's no longer a game of volume. So you're not going to be interrupted to go do a hygiene check and go take an impression. You're going to walk in the room and it's going to be low volume. So I think it's going to be lower stress. So I think the quality will go up, the quantity will go down, so the price will go up. So less dentistry for more money.
Insurances. Is that going to change? The types of insurances that the general dentist is going to accept, is that going to change in your opinion?
Okay, well, first of all, we know we've lost 30 million jobs. We know that in America, where you get your dental insurance is from your employer. It's a value-added perk to attract and retain employees. We know that number is an exponential growth. There's no curve to it. So I think most people that do this for 11 in economics think that pre-corona, 80% of American adults had a job, and now we're at 50%. So basically 30% of America, because when you say someone's unemployed, that's a technical thing. I filled out my application for unemployment, where other people, well, the restaurant, we're just not open. They haven't really, but basically 30%, 3 in 10 Americans that used to have a job don't have a job, 3 out of 10. And that's a ton of dental insurance. So the dental insurance market has just contracted at more than, first of all, it started after World War II. And the whole dental insurance, before World War II, there was no dental insurance anywhere around the world. And what happened is during World War II, a lot of governments implemented price freezes. They thought the best way to, I got to hire all these people to build all these tanks and ships and jeeps and guns and bullets. So one smart thing I'll do is I'll just freeze their wages. So they all got together and formed unions, said, okay, well, we can't get any more money, but how about free dental insurance? And the Longshoremen's Club started it right after World War II in about 1948 in Oregon, Washington, California. That turned into Delta Dental. Now there's like 30. So that was something that didn't exist before World War II. And right now during this pandemic, it doesn't exist at all anymore because the whole thing was built on American manufacturing. So it was the whole practice management of the 70s when I was in high school was Quest. And Quest was the biggest practice management booster because every dentist had 1 chair or maybe 2, and they would convince you to add a hygienist. And Bob Barker was going around and none of the dentists had hygienists, and they all said they didn't have time for this. And they were so busy extracting teeth, doing full dentures that no one had time for a hygienist. So they got a hygienist, and that was some passive income, and they got more than 1 chair. They got to 2 or 3. So dentistry had a huge gap, a huge increase because after World War II, the reason my generation thought wars were good for the economy, because wars are very good for the economy if you're fighting the 2 best manufacturing countries in the world. I mean, Honda, Lexus, Infinity. I mean, Japan and Germany are the only 2 countries that know how to make anything that doesn't fall apart. I mean, it's like, well, it gives you a sense of advertising, because what do they tell you to do in advertising? What's science say? You know what your competitors are saying bad about you, so let's spin that. Well, nobody selling a German or a Japanese car talks about warranty because their car actually works. So in American cars, it's always about the warranty and 70-year bumper to bumper, and we warranty everything. We know it's a piece of shit. We know it's going to fall apart. We know you should buy Japanese. Same thing with Raisin Bran. The only thing that you wonder when you're eating Raisin Bran is there's no raisins. So what's the ad? There's 2 scoops of raisins in every box. They know there's no raisins. And they
So do you think dentists will take fewer insurances?
Well, first of all, supply and demand, right? Supply,
right.
30 million people just lost their dental insurance. So I don't really care if this dentist takes it or not. 30 million people just lost their dental benefits. And I have a lot of dental insurance friends. Just look at the people that I know that are in dental insurance. So they're scared shitless. But number 2, you going back up, opening up your office, why am I going to sign up to do it? When I got out of school, I charged $1,000 for a crown, $1,000 for a root canal. So when I got out of school, I would bill the insurance and they'd say, here's the plan. We pay 100% for cleaning, exam, and x-ray. We pay 80% for root canals and fillings and 50% for crowns, dentures, and partials. So whatever my price was, I would bill it and they would pay their percentage. And then they turned it around and said, no. We're just going to tell you the fee. And people say, well, why are you going to do that? And they say, well, half my practice is insurance. Yeah, well, half your practice is gone. And so when I got out of school in 87, I would do a crown for $1,000. 2 months ago, before Corona, that crown was $650. It used to be a root canal was $1,000. Now the molar's $650. Well, hell, with PPE, going in that room, sitting down, start to finish, it's no longer a game of volume. Now, what's going to happen 2 years from now? Well, if you ask Warren Buffett what the market's going to be at 2 years from now, he would think you're drinking beer. I mean, nobody can predict the future. So anybody, hell, Einstein would tell you the future doesn't even exist, just like the past doesn't exist. We only have the present. So no one knows where this is going to go. But I'll tell you this, I'm a betting man. I got a 4 in 7 chance that the fall comeback of this virus is going to be twice as big as the first deal. So if, come on, you know geometry, cosine, trig, tangents. If you're going to go with the 4 out of 7, not the 1 out of 7. If you're going to wait for the vaccine, well, pull up a chair next to me. I've been waiting since 1980. They've never, ever got a singular corona common cold vaccine. Now, with all this attention and they get it, God, I hope I'm wrong. I hope everybody tells me how wrong I was, but I'm not going to hold my breath for a vaccine.
Hygienists, what does it look like for hygienists the next year?
Well, that's kind of funny because dentists, they're not hardworking people. They take off 3 days a week. They don't work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. No, that's why I call it dentistry uncensored. I don't talk to dentists because I'm looking for a friend. I'm trying to tell them what I honestly feel. And I feel like if I really love and respect and admire Abe, then it's my duty to tell him what I absolutely believe, not trying to sugarcoat it and say, well, I don't want to say anything bad about Wayne Gretzky or maple syrup or I'll hurt his feelings and make him cry. Hey, maple syrup causes tooth decay, Abe. Eat it. And so any dentist who likes hockey is sick in the head, man. They knock out teeth. But back to the
Hygienists.
Back to the hygienist. When times were good, I always know that how you pick your sample is more important than the sample size. And I have thousands of dentists on my iPhone and notes. And when I walk into a dental office, I actually enter a few things about that dentist. Bottom line is, when you've walked into 1,000 dental offices, 80% of the time when you walk in that office, he's sitting back in his private office. And there's a hygienist for $40 an hour doing a $60 cleaning, the assistant's backing cord. And if I put a gun to that dentist's head and said, okay, is that patient checking out? I want you to go check her out and file the insurance claim on the computer, or I'm going to have to shoot you. I'd have to shoot every dentist I know. So why are you sitting back there for $40 an hour on what? And Facebook is very important. You know how you make money with Facebook? Delete your account, fire the hygienist, and go do your own damn cleaning. It's not a game of volume. Then furthermore, look at this. I'm going to stop here just for a second and look at this. Here's 2 scenarios. You got a $40 an hour hygienist. She's setting up the room that a $20 an hour dental assistant can do. And then she goes in and gets the patient and takes bite wings. A $20 an hour assistant could have done it. And then she gets ready to probe. So now she needs someone to record. So now she calls the $20 an hour sister over. So I got a $40 an hour hygienist, $20 an hour assistant doing a cleaning for $60. Did anybody take math? And then when they're done, she does the polishing, the floss, all that kind of stuff. Then she's got to go get the doc for an exam. Every hygienist has told me for 32 years, they usually got to wait about 10 minutes before. So 10 minutes, I'm waiting for you. Then you come in and you've got 2 pieces of data. I'm looking at your new patient exam data, and your new patient exam data is like $1,500. And then I'm looking at your recall exam data, and it's like $250. And then I look at the only 3 publicly traded dental offices in the world, and none of them are in the United States. Are you kidding me? You think Heartland and Pacific and those guys could go public? I mean, their management needs 17% off the top. My lab and supplies isn't 17%. What the hell could that DSO do for me? I mean, if they just gave me free supplies and free lab, well, it'd be a break even because they want 17% for the, so that, 1 layer of management is great. I mean, when I go into a town and there's a dental office, north, south, east, west, and they got 1 layer of flat management, and they got a marketing guy, an accounting guy, an operation logistics guy, and everybody, instead of doing about $750, taking home $175, all the doctors are doing about $1.2 million and taking home $250, $300. That's great. But then when the out-of-stater comes and buys that little mini DSO, and they need another 17% off the top, the staff turnover just falls to shit. You might as well just light them on fire. I mean, it's just crazy, crazy stuff. But the only 3 DSO models that are publicly traded today, there's 2 in Australia. There's Daryl, who has 1-300 Smiles. There's Q&M in Singapore, and there's Pacific Smiles and by Alex Abrams, and they all have the same model. It's 7 to 7, 7 days a week. There's no hygienist. Why do they not have hygienists? Same reason they don't have any debt. The same reason they grow in profits. The same reason they're publicly traded. There's not a DSO in the world that Wall Street would let go public. Hell, Snapchat went public, but no dental DSOs because they're not profitable. They just grow with debt. Like you're in Canada, home of the smartest man in the world, Mr. Wonderful. He's bald, he's beautiful, he's gorgeous. And if you went to him on Shark Tank, he'd say, what are you here for, Abe? Oh, I want $1 million. I'm going to buy that dental office. Okay, well, how do I get my money back? Oh, well, next week I'm going to come and get another $1 million and buy another one. Okay, how do I get my money back? Well, every week I'm going to get another $1 million and buy another $1 million, and pretty soon we'll have $1 billion in sales. And again, you'll also have $1 billion in debt, you nut. How am I going to get my money back? Oh, well, we'll just find someone else to buy it. And then after they hold it for a year, we'll just keep having other people buy it until the whole thing crashes. But the bottom line, this is why they don't have hygienists at 1-300 Smiles, Pacific Smiles, or Q&M. Because when you have no hygiene, the assistant seats up the room, they seat the patient, they take the x-rays, then you come in and you have to measure the gums. Hell, that's better than your recall exam. You had to actually measure 6 points on every tooth. Then you have to scale. You know how much better an exam is when you have to scale versus when you go in there with a mirror and just blow some air around and say, okay, you look good. Good seeing you, buddy. Get out of here. You're in there, you're probing, you're scaling, and you're only in there for about 15 minutes. But the amount of dentistry diagnosed and converted looks like your new patient exam. And we get rid of the recall exam dentistry. And because of that, they got rid of so when I go into a dental office, the labor is about 25%. That 25%, 10% of that's hygiene, 15% of that's assistant and the dry hands and the assistant. So hygienists are 10% across the cost. And they sit there 10% more cost, but it makes you do a quick exam, so there's no dentistry conversion. So yes, some hygienists convert a lot of dentistry. There's outliers to everything I'm saying. I'm talking about the whole market in its whole.
So what do you think is going to happen to the DSO market?
Well, I think that are we looking at a V shape where we crushed it in 60 days and bounced back? I don't think there's no one in the Federal Reserve who thinks that's going to happen. None of the people I listen to. Warren Buffett is still not buying into this market. It's a 2-year deal. So right now, the market's still going back up because the DSOs are all like, okay, open back up and everything's going to be pre-corona like tomorrow. And you're starting to find out the hard reality. We're in May 11th. My office is open back up. And I'm looking at these numbers. And the best guys out there are saying that they're back to 50%. There are also guys I've known for 32 years who always exaggerate and bullshit. They're Irish Catholic drunks. Okay, so don't believe. If they say they're Irish Catholic and they're drinking, they're exaggerating their numbers. But let's say they're right. Well, if it comes back half, that's a depression. They're too leveraged. They have tons of leverage. They are so leveraged. And, now that's completely different because they need more capital. And then a lot of dentists are thinking that the United States is going to go bankrupt. So I've got to address that real quick. If you borrow your money from yourself and you have the printing press, you can't go bankrupt because you can just print the money. I mean, when Venezuela had their currency pegged to the US dollar or Argentina or the Asian tigers, and they have to keep selling their dollars for American dollars, yeah, you can collapse. But we have a printing press. We counterfeit money. So if you think we're going to go bankrupt, then you have no faith in printers. I don't know if a cannon copier fell on you when you were a little kid and you're still traumatized, and whenever you see the paper printer, but the United States can't go bankrupt. But if the whole economy in the world is just me and Abe, and together our total productivity made 1 can of cherry, 0 sugar Coca-Cola, And that was our total productivity. And the government printed $1. Well, then a can of Coke would be $1. Now we still have just two people on earth, me and Abe, and together he made the can, I made the soda. Our total productivity is a can of soda, but the government comes along and prints another $1. Well, that's inflation. So now the can of Coke is $2. It didn't change the number of people or products or goods. That's why Milton Friedman won the Nobel Prize in economics, because he proved mathematically that all inflation was monetary policy. You have runaway inflation because they're printing money. That's not a debate. Nobody argues with that in MBA school. These are just considered obvious things that we know. So I think going forward, I mean, usually we had $1 trillion a year of debt, and we had 20 trillion. They just added 4.6. So are we likely to have more inflation or less? Well, I don't know. If you fall down on the sidewalk, are you more likely to bleed or heal? I mean, so obviously we have inflationary tendencies going forward. Obviously, we're going to have a contraction in dental benefits of 30 million plus, and then the older 50 are scared. No, when I see a 5-year-old riding his bike down the street, well, I don't see any data. A bunch of look at the data from Italy. I mean, it was all a bunch of over 85, over 75, diabetic, over 65. I mean, they weren't having a crisis in their daycare centers, you know, and every my 4 boys turned into 6 kids. I'd rather it hurt the grandpas than the grandkids. I mean, that's a given. But the problem is grandpa has all the money and the grandkids don't. And so what's really weird about the economy is that there's about 10,000 people that are the CEOs of all these companies. And I know most of them in dentistry for years. They're hunkered down. Dude, they're scared. They're not going, they're like, I'm a millionaire. Why am I going to go into the office and risk that? And they're just buying time that maybe people that test positive to COVID-19 antibodies, maybe the antibody treatment will be better in a hospital. Because right now, everybody's fighting over a ventilator. And if you get on a ventilator, it's a 90% death rate. I don't know why they just don't play Russian roulette and just have a pistol in the operating room and say, hey, we're going to put you on a ventilator, or do you want to play one game of Russian roulette? We got a gun with 10 bullets, and I mean, I don't know why you're fighting over a ventilator when it's a 90% death mark. So I think people are buying time that you get a better treatment, that you do get a vaccine. The people that are into the vaccines couldn't talk for 4 minutes on what a vaccine is, because I mean, you and I, they've been promising this for gum disease, dental decay, and the common cold their whole life. So that's a pipe dream. But antibody treatment, we're already seeing some of that. So they're just buying time. They're kind of looking at a deer in the headlight. But these are the people that need root canals, gum surgery, implants, crown and bridge. These are the ones that go to the nice restaurants, get in airplanes and fly, go to the Scottsdale resorts and the Phoenicians, and that business is down 90%, and it's not going to come back in 2 years. You're going to have to deal with this fear, this pandemic, because I don't care how many liver spots you have on your head, you still don't want to die tonight. You know you're going to die. Let's just not make it tonight, okay? And so the old people who have all the money aren't going to spend. The young people who never had fear, they're probably going to do the best. So when you're going to deal with a lot less demand and you're still going to dump out 6,500 new dentists, if I was that dentist coming out of school, I'd specialize. If I wanted to specialize, I would just go do, a practice limited. I certainly wouldn't give the greedy dental schools $100,000 a year more for 3 years, because I mean, if your only mission on earth is to retire some old dental school university professor, just send your money to me. Email me, howard@dentaltown.com. I'll give you my home address. Just put cash in a package and mail it to me. Go do an apprenticeship. But here's what I want you to have faith in. Lose the fear of the corona with the fear of being an owner operator, and scale down. We need to scale down half our capacity and go out there and open your own damn dental office with one operatory, one employee, no insurance. and just do quality disease control. I'm from the American Academy of Disease Control Dentistry, and you're going to come in here and you're going to feel safe, and no one's sick in here, and no one's coughing, and we got the air vents, and I'm wearing a K95 mask, and I got that big old vacuum. Have you seen that big old vacuum hose?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Well, how could you say an N95 mask and that even works if you can still smell the patient fart? Okay, come on. It can't be working too good. So that's my advice. Lose the fear and lose the volume.
Howard, last question. Where do you see Dentaltown in the next 5 years? Dentaltown has done a lot for a lot of people in terms of education. What is Dentaltown's going to look like? How is Dentaltown going to change, if it's going to change?
Well, look who's asking me the question, Mr. Dental Cupid. Right?
Yes.
I think that if you, I told my 4 boys all the time, and when I remember, so I was in high school, and my dad and I are walking into the the Bank of West Wichita, and they just opened up this ATM machine. And we stood behind him and watched this man doing all this crap, and we looked at each other like, what an idiot. And we went in there, and when you went into the bank, you got a sucker. And it's like, okay, you go in, they do it all for you, you get a sucker, we come outside, and that man's still over that ATM machine. And my dad and I are laughing like, yeah, that's never going to take off. The first time I saw a cell phone, it was a brick attached to a briefcase. So the point I'm telling you is I never saw any of this coming. In fact, when I look back, I think the greatest invention in my lifetime was the remote control. Because when we were little, we were the remote control. I mean, your dad would say, hey, change it to 6. No, and you sit down. No, change it to 12. You sit down. No, change it to 5. And then when the reception's bad, you had to hold the antennas because somehow you grounded the antennas and the TV would work. So you're either standing there holding the antennas or, so you're not going to see any of these technologies coming. So they already know that in about 20 years, 1/3 of America is going to work in an industry that wasn't invented. So like right now I have the telegraph. Well, it's going to be replaced by the telephone and then the internet. And then I had the TV, and then it went to the VCR and the 8-track and the cassette and the CD-ROM and the MP3. So you have no idea of what's coming down the pipe. What you have to do is train your mind classically. And I want to talk about that. That is, when you go back to 1850 to now, the shock was the new technology. It started out with the combustion engine, and it was so big. Remember, faster, easier, higher quality, lower cost, smaller. It was so big it could only be used in a coal mine to pump water out of flooded mines. But it kept getting smaller and smaller. Eventually, fit on a ship. And that started the whole shipping industry. And then when they got to America, they needed canals to catch the Great Lakes and make it all the way to Chicago. And then there was the communication, the telegraph, which turned into the telephone, which turned into the internet. So the thing you have to do is you have to train yourself that when there is a big change, everything reorganizes. So we're only into this pandemic. I keep telling my staff this number because it puts it in perspective. Corona deaths worldwide, just going on the 3rd of February, only 426. 3rd of March, 3,200. 3rd of April, 61,000. 3rd of May, 248,000. Well, what does that mean? Well, if you were paranoid and freaked out about the coronavirus in January and February, you have some kind of anxiety disorder, okay? You shouldn't have really got religion that, hey, dude, something's seriously up until March, April, and we're just at May 10th. So we're just 2 months into this. And I was so proud of you instantly, just 2 months. Do you realize that when Amazon went public in 94, I'm looking at Amazon and I'm buying all these other stocks like GE, and I'm surprised I wasn't investing in the Nifty 50. And I looked at Amazon from 94 to 98 before I got it. And I tell everybody, if you have to stare at the telegraph for 4 years before you, I mean, look at when motion pictures came out. You had the silent movie and the phonograph side by side for 40 years. You said you were 45?
44, sir.
How old are you?
44.
So your entire life was spent with a phonograph and a silent movie before some guy said, you think we could plug them in together? And the worst one, the one that almost makes me cry, is they had chocolate and peanut butter for 2 centuries before somebody added that and made a Reese's peanut butter cup. I mean, think of all the deprived children that never had chocolate on their peanut butter. So right now, the coronavirus has turned the world upside down. And Wall Street's figuring this out because the FANG stocks are doing great because they were designed from the ground up virtual. We have a human-to-human contagion disease where, it's a severe acute respiratory deal. Well, they don't deal with customers. You couldn't get a human on. Try calling Google and getting a human on the phone. I mean, my God. It's impossible, but that's a perfect business model. So what's funny is pre-corona, the orthodontists, they were ready to get their lawyers and take those Smile Direct Club bastards and bury them. And now they're realizing, oh my God, they got such a better business model. It's all virtual. And now they're scrambling around. And some of the states are in trouble because they rushed through some anti-teledentistry bills because they were trying to intentionally slam Smiles Direct Club. And now their own members are saying, well, wait a minute, now I need that. I need to teledentistry. So obviously, like right now, you and I are sharing droplets. And by the way, there's a lot of research that doesn't believe in this aerosol thing because when you look at the social isolating, the rates are coming down. And you just had a Canadian paper. He was up by you. Did you read that paper from the Canadians? I'll see if I can pull it up. But anyway, it was like 10 or 20 of the best epidemiologists in Toronto signed off on it. This real quick, Russia. Real quick. Stark County, Arkansas, counterfeit.
So do you think teledentistry is the future?
Well, absolutely. You got a contagion virus and someone wants to call and make an appointment to come in. Why would I want to? Okay, I'm going to get this one thing because it's so important. Evidence shows COVID-19 is almost exclusively spread by droplets. Those challenges underpinned by belief disease is airborne and that wearing an N95 mask will reduce healthcare worker risk when the evidence and science say otherwise. Sean Airy Bittnam, MD, that's the star. But anyway, that's let me see where he's from. I think he's from Toronto, isn't he? Yeah. But anyway, they're looking at all the mortalities and they're saying, okay, these people were all in a 1/3 were in a nursing home where there was someone sick in the nursing home. And then the other people, they go down and they're not finding any evidence of high-speed handpieces and aerosols and wind blowing down the street. It always comes back to, you're living with your cousin Eddie and he had it. And the reason, I mean, look at Seoul and Taiwan and South Korea and Japan. I mean, they hardly had any casualties because when this came out, they knew how to do it. It was contacting. If you got sick, they went and made sure, well, who did you talk to? Who, not teledentistry, who do you physically see? And they just would find everybody that's sick and isolate them and it's gone. And America still hasn't done this. Like I went and got tested. Well, I shouldn't even have been able to get a test. Those tests should have gone to all the people of who's ever in the emergency room to find out who the hell's spreading it. So America is so, I mean, they couldn't have done a worse job. So all that means is you're on your own. So a lot of dentists are asking me, well, what can I do? Well, first of all, I would only worry about your state board because the Centers for Disease Control isn't a regulatory agency. There's United Nations, the World Health, the White House, So basically it's just going to be between, I would worry about the guy who gave you your dental license in your county, province, state. So I would only worry about the guy who can actually take your license away. And I would balance that with the patient. Because, like, what is an emergency room? I mean, if you ask an emergency room doctor what's an emergency, it's like, my God, it's everything from A to Z. So when they say emergency dentistry, my first patient, when we opened back up, was a 71-year-old lady who had lost her front tooth the day before I closed down on St. Patrick's Day. She was so pissed that we were closed and that she had gone all that time without a front tooth. I mean, she's 71 and she's still as vain as can be. Oh my God, she was mad. And so you're a dentist, that's your patient. She wants to see you. She's always going to want to see. She's wanted to see you for 200 years. I started out this seminar with the average. How much cash would I have to give your wife to pull number 8 and never replace it?
I don't think you have enough cash, sir.
Yeah, I'd have to rob the Federal Reserve. So dentistry is not going away, but it's going to slow down, and it's no longer a game of volume. Don't worry about insurance because all your patients lost their dental insurance. 30 million of them lost their dental insurance. You don't need, sometimes I would look at dentists, I'd say, I don't even know what you are. And they'd say, what do you mean? I'm a dentist. I said, dude, you have 18 employees. To me, it looks like your mission is to create jobs. I mean, it's like you're stressed out of your mind. You're working your butt off. You're doing all this. And then I look at your payroll of 30%. It's like, man, I love you, but I think the only thing you're all about is creating jobs for other people. Well, maybe it's time to just worry about yourself. You're no longer in charge of creating jobs for other people. You're a dentist. That patient needs a dentist. It's going to slow down. This iPhone, they buy these with cash. These are $1,000 cash. You Canadians always say Americans don't buy no metric. Are you kidding me? We buy 9mm shells for our gun on the way to buy a kilo of cocaine. They buy their drugs in metric grams, their bullets in metric. They buy everything in cash. So it's no longer a game of volume. If you can buy an iPhone for $1,000, you want to get your tooth fixed in the middle of a pandemic, come to my office. It's just going to be you, me, and my assistant, and you're going to be the only patient we're going to see. And I'm going to charge, and it's $1,500 and it's on credit card. I'm not billing your insurance. And if you want some wham bam, thank you, ma'am, Southwest Airlines, IKEA dentist, that was pre-corona because that's just not how it works anymore. It's an infectious disease. It's airborne and it's not from the aerosol in your high speed. It's more droplets. And so today we were working with carpenters to get a plastic shield at the front desk so that you can't, sneeze droplets right on your receptionist. We got all those big, those air things. Everybody's ready to come back. The staff wants to come back. The patients want to come back. I mean, and during this pandemic, did you notice, maybe it was different in Canada, but did you notice during the pandemic that everybody quit eating sugar and started brushing and flossing 3 times a day and only snacking on celery sticks and carrots? No, they doubled down on candy and they all gained 15 pounds and all their little cavities are now big cavities and it's not going to take very long. And those cavities are going to start dropping into nerves. So little $250 cavity fillings are going to turn into $2,500 root canal buildup and crowns. The emergency rooms aren't closed. So it's time to, I've spent my whole life in a pandemic. I got out of high school in 1980 and it was the AIDS pandemic. And it was 1979. And then right when I graduated from dental school, a dentist had his patient, Kimberly Bergalis, got infected with AIDS. And so for 5 years out of school, everybody, well, do you sterilize your handpiece? And I'd say, well, why do you ask that? Well, I don't want to catch AIDS. I say, well, AIDS is a sexually transmitted disease, and I had you scheduled for a crown. What did you think we were going to do today? I mean, so this is not my first virus rodeo, and AIDS permanently changed dentistry. We went from no gloves to gloves and masks. We got rid of the cuspidors. We got, instead of having water come in off the street, now we have bottled water in each room. I think suction's going to change. I'm already putting the doors back on my ops, and I'm looking at negative pressure. So yeah, and a lot of the airplanes, they don't realize that after the SARS 1, they don't recirculate the air in the new airplanes. The air's thrown out of the airplane. So everybody's been getting incrementally improved, virus after virus after virus. And those viruses were before us because a self-replicating mechanism virus is what came out of chemistry to give us the genesis of biology. So biology was created when chemistry coughed out a self-replicating mechanism. So viruses were here before us. They're going to be here after us. And we're just going to have to get better at living and working and reproducing and having offspring with these little coronaviruses.
Well, Dr. Farron, you are very colorful in describing dentistry, to the point, no censorship. I really appreciate it. And we hope to see you in a couple of months' time and have you come back up and educate us all on your perspective. Thank you very much.
Only if I can drink Irish whiskey and play pool in your man club, in your man cave.